This month marks a year since the COVID-19 lockdown was fully lifted in South Africa. The pandemic forced a global change where companies adopted new ways of working, with Zoom and Teams and even unmute yourself becoming everyday words. But remote working has been severely impacted impacted the commercial property space. And let's find out just how much with Malcolm Horne from Broll Property Group, actually the CEO. Thank you very much for making the time to join us this morning, Malcolm. And maybe let's start with that impact. As I mentioned in my intro, the way we work and live completely changed because of the pandemic and the different lockdown stages that we were plunged into throughout the 2 years. Maybe speak to the commercial property space and how that was impacted.
Absolutely, and thank you, and good morning to you, good morning to your viewers. I think to understand how the space was impacted, it's important to understand the pre-COVID scenario in the property sector as well. So if you look at the pre-COVID scenario, we had an economy that wasn't growing, we had an office sector that was already hemorrhaging with too much vacant space, we had a retail sector with shopping centres and retailers saying that they're paying too much rent, they've got too much space, and the logistics sector was working pretty well, and we still had lockdown pre-COVID, load shedding pre-COVID. We still had municipal non-service delivery. We still had rates being excessively increased across the sector. So if you have a look at that context, we had occupiers optimizing space at all levels, trying to save costs, and then suddenly you had lockdown. And lockdown, I think, accelerated any 5-year strategy into a 2-year scenario where most companies went from absolute survival mode to sustaining themselves to becoming what is the opportunity that exists within this environment for us to grow, to thrive. And a lot of companies gravitated towards going back into their strategies, looking at their employees, having a look at how they can best position themselves for a post-COVID environment. And if you look at where we are now, I mean, we're a year in, a lot of those trends that we saw pre-COVID have merely accelerated, and a lot of solutions have come to market, a lot of optimism has come to market in the private sector, in the property industry, because those that are here are still here to stay, they're here to play, and they're here to make solutions. It doesn't mean that it's a rosy picture, but it means that there is a lot of goodwill, a lot of innovation, a lot of solutions happening that would have taken 5 years to actually implement, that have actually already been implemented or are currently in implementation.
Yeah, let's look at some of that innovation, Malcolm, that has come through, that 5-year kind of adaptation that has been cut down to 2 that property companies have had to do. Some property companies are turning office spaces into warehouses or apartments, to adapt, like you say. But let's talk more about those innovations that companies have had to look at to make sure that they are able to not just survive, like you say, but thrive in the market.
Well, I think a lot of let's talk about energy, for example. I mean, energy is a major issue. So sustainability has come to the fore, where often sustainability was very theoretical before COVID. It's actually become a necessity, a reality. So just to have energy security or water security, more and more you're finding that is coming to the fore, where companies are becoming self-sufficient or less reliant on government infrastructure, but yet want to say to government, let's reach out, let's help, let's build. And if you look at the actual office sector, so let me just tackle a few sectors in the market where what's happening in sector context. So if you look at the office sector, yes, there have been, especially in Tshwane and Johannesburg, there have been a lot of conversions from office to possibly residential or student housing, but you can only do that with so many buildings. So we are seeing that a lot of recycled capital is coming to market, a lot of buildings are coming to market to be sold, to be disposed of, but pricing has sort of leveled out. So I think transactions are starting to happen in that space. But I think the most interesting part is if you go and have a look at where people are investing. In the Western Cape, you will find, for example, there is a shortage of premium grade office space. You found many data establishing themselves there. And so it all depends which sector you look at. as to what innovation has happened, but investors are following where things work, where they can get better returns for their money, and occupiers are starting to do the same.